voice to all the devotees. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, Chapter 25, Text 25. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Vanam tu sattviko vaso gramo rajasa uchate tamasam dyuta sandanam mam niketam tu nirgunam vanam tu sattviko vaso gramo rajasa uchate tamasam dyuta santanam mam niketam tu nirgunam vanam tu sattviko vaso gramo rajasa uchate tamasam jyuta sandhanam mam niketam tu nirgunam vanam tu sattviko vaso gramo rajasa uchate tamasam jyuta sandanam mam niketam tu nirgunam. Mam niketam tu nirgunam. Ladies chant, please. Vanam tu sattviko bhaso gramo rajasa uchate tamasam jyuta sandhanam man niketam tu nirgunam. Tu sattviko vaso tamasam jyuta sandhanam vanam, the forest. Tu, whereas. Sattvikaha, in the mode of goodness. Vasaha, residence. Gramaha, the village and neighborhood. Rajasaha, in the mode of passion. Uchate, is said. Tamasam, in the mode of goodness. In the mode of ignorance. Dyuta sadhanam, the gambling house. Mat niketam, my residence. Tu, but. Nirgunam, transcendental. Translation: residence in the forest is in the mode of goodness. Residence in a town is in the mode of passion. Residence in a gambling house displays the quality of ignorance, and residence in a place where I reside is transcendental purport. Many creatures in the forest, such as trees, wild boars, and insects, are actually in the mode of passion and ignorance. But residence in the forest is designated as being in the mode of goodness because there one may live a solitary life, free from sinful activities, material opulence, and passionate ambition. Throughout the history of India, many millions of persons from all walks of life have adopted the orders of Vanaprastha and Sannyas and have gone to sacred forests to practice austerity and perfect their self-realization. Even in America and other Western countries, persons such as Thoreau achieved fame by retiring to the forest to reduce the scope and opulence of material involvement. Paragraph. The word grama here indicates residence in the village of one's family. Family life is certainly full of pride, false hopes, false affection, lamentation, and delusion, since the family connection is squarely resting on the bodily concept of life, the very opposite of self-realization. The word duta, sadanam, gambling house, refers to pool halls, race tracks, poker clubs, bars, and other sinful places that maintain an abysmal level of consciousness in the mode of ignorance. Man, niketam, refers to the Lord's own abode in the spiritual world, as well as the Lord's temples within this world, wherein the deity form of the Lord is appropriately worshipped. One who lives in the temple of Lord Krishna, following the rules and regulations of temple life, is understood to be residing on the transcendental platform. In these verses, the Lord clearly explains that all material phenomena may be divided into three divisions according to the modes of nature, and that ultimately there is the fourth, or transcendental division, Krishna consciousness, which elevates all aspects of human culture to the liberated platform. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshud Unmiditam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Mano Bhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam. Transcendental literature, Srimad Bhagavatam. Just yesterday evening there was a program where two families were welcoming Srimad Bhagavatam in their home. Set of Srimad Bhagavatam. Presumably there'll be others in that community because it's quite an enthusiastic group of people will do the same. And when you invite Krishna into your home and respect the Srimad Bhagavatam, not only entrance but residing, then one's home becomes like a spiritual place. So if you want your home to be a spiritual place, that's a good step. Take Srimad Bhagavatam into your home. And those of you that may be listening online, consider, if you don't already have Srimad Bhagavatam in your home, invite Krishna into your home, and your place will become spiritual. I remember not so long ago, I was giving a class, Naikama was sitting in the class, where I was sharing, I heard Srila Prabhupada say from the Vyasa twice in New York, one which was in Brooklyn, the other was in Manhattan. And Prabhupada said from the Vyasa, this temple is not in Brooklyn, it is Vaikuntha. And his eyes got very big. And later the temple shifted to Manhattan. He said the same thing. The temple's not in New York, it's in Vaikuntha. And then I heard, and Naikatma confirmed that Prabhupada did the same thing in Los Angeles. Pretty consistent. This temple is not in Los Angeles, the temple is in Vaikuntha. So how can the temple be in Vaikuntha if the address is Vatseka Boulevard? With Radha Krishna yesterday, we were listening to Prabhupada speaking. It was a room conversation in Hawaii, where Yogi Bhajan, a celebrated Sikh personality, was visiting Prabhupada in Hawaii because he had gone there to attend a seminar, and he visited the Hawaii temple to invite Srila Prabhupada to a conference. Unity of Mankind was the title of the conference. And in the course of their discussion, Prabhupada asked him, "Where is your headquarters?" And he said, "Culver City." Have you been to their place? Vijay? Huh? You've been by it. So according to this conversation, it's a couple blocks away from our temple. Yogi Bhajan had visited our temple multiple times. And there were a few things he noted. One of the things was the devotees have such love for Prabhupada. He gave some example. But both are in Los Angeles, within similar neighborhoods, and where Krishna is residing, of course, the Sikhs, they also hold that the scripture is worshipable. Grantha is worshipable. And other traditions also take it that the scripture is worshipable. Just sharing. The place where the temple in Brooklyn is at present is formerly, or was formerly, a synagogue. And when the temple was purchased, we went through a tour through the temple, and on the second floor there was a long room where they had rituals, Jewish rituals, and at the end of this long hall, there was a little platform. On top of the platform was a stanchion. On top of the stanchion is where they put the scripture, because the scripture is worshipable. I'm just making a point how important Srimad Bhagavatam is, to have Srimad Bhagavatam, to immerse ourselves in Srimad Bhagavatam, as we're doing every morning in all of ISKCON temples and many homes. It makes the place spiritual. I heard one lecture, Prabhupada was in Detroit, and he was speaking about what makes this place a temple when on left side and right side they're homes, but this is a temple. And previously the Detroit temple was a home. Without details, it was somebody connected with the automobile industry. Mr. Fisher, the body by Fisher, the celebrated person who designed cars, that's where he lived, and we bought that place. So Prabhupada's statement was, what makes this a temple? And to the left and to the right, it's a house. And it's simple, because it becomes a temple and thus a transcendental place, or as the verse is saying, residence in a place where I reside. So we don't live in the temple. We have places where we live near the temple, perhaps. The ashram is right across the street from the temple. But it's a transcendental place. Why? Because Krishna is at the center. So it's a matter of transcendentalizing the material world. So going through this whole chapter is Krishna speaking to Uddhava, and the topic has to do with the modes of nature and transcendence. And consistent with that theme of the chapter, that's what this verse is saying. So places can also be, and places are very important. So there's the country, or the forest, vana, and in the forest there's purposefully the diminishing of the materialistic tendencies, and purposefully, conversely, the spiritual tendencies, or at least mode of goodness tendencies by design. So the point being, the modes of nature are characterized by places, and where you reside has a significant impact on consciousness. And it's certainly possible to have a different consciousness than the place where you reside. On the other hand, the place where you reside has a significant impact on consciousness. So here it says villages is the mode of passion, and village doesn't just mean village. Village means, where there's gatherings of people. More common where we have our temples, it's in cities. There's also in the country. There's also in smaller places. So the city or the village, or what's being expressed in the purport here, is where the family resides. This is connected to the mode of passion, that is to say, stimulation of the senses through fruitive activities, to acquire things and enjoy things. And it doesn't speak very highly in the purport. Of course, there's of family life, but certainly family life is as a common and universal way of life, and it can be also spiritualized. And then there's the mode of ignorance. Now, I don't know of people that live in gambling houses and bars and racetracks, but they are places of ignorance where sinful activity is abundant. And that inclination for those kinds of places, or residing in or near those kinds of places, is the modes of nature. So the compare and contrast is the transcendental place where Krishna resides. Again, place has a very significant impact on consciousness. And even if one chooses one of these other, we don't choose the mode of ignorance option, but if one goes into, there's this nice statement, if you see Lord Nityananda going into a liquor shop, please understand that he's going there for preaching purpose. He's not going because he enjoys liquor shops. He enjoys delivering persons regardless of the mode of nature. He's that kind of merciful personality. Extremely merciful personality. Ready to deliver jagais and madhais, etc. And the Sankirtan movement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu similarly is meant to deliver. So let's step back and say a few things. Prabhupada, coming to the West, he knew what the audience was. Well, here over the weekend, so if you're going to be attending, you'll hear it again and again. Before going to Japan, there was an invitation to go to Japan, and Prabhupada assessed the audience. And he assessed in such a way that he created a book meant for the audience, customized for the audience. It didn't change the principles, but the covering or the style of the presentation was to match the audience. So similarly, our temples, according to place, circumstance, the temples are what the temples are, and they can start very simple, but then according to the constituency, we want Krishna to be at the center, and we also want it to be very inviting for the people. And so city or urban temples are most common for a variety of reasons. And the place is a place of passion, but it's a respite for those that are sojourning through the passionate cities to find an oasis that's not of that same nature. So it's certainly incumbent upon the Vaishnavas to be transcendentalists and have character and qualities like transcendentalists. And that's a bit of a transformation, but that's part of our service, to make the place inviting for persons who are harassed by the modes of nature, etc., 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 to have this contrasting experience, both the place and the persons who are serving in that place. In the Puranas, I came to find out, there are abundant references to the word tirtha, the holy place, and names of tirthas and the benefits of visiting those tirthas. It's abundant. Like, there's a whole section in Hari Bhakti Vilas about visiting tirthas. Many, many, many. So it's not an exhaustive, but it's abundant. So the holy places are transcendental. Here it's mentioned sacred forests. The vanaprasthas and sannyasis would go to sacred forests. But forest, and then there's sacred forests. What does make a forest sacred, as opposed to a mode of goodness forest? And it's places where Krishna performed his pastimes. There are several verses that speak about, in our Gaudiya Vaishnava literature, for example, in text number 8 of Nectar of Instruction, there's reference to the importance of the place where Krishna has performed his pastimes, and residing in such a place is beneficial. Just yesterday evening, we were discussing the Damodar pastime, and there's references where within Mathura district, there's, I forget the number, 5 million holy places condensed within Mathura. That's a lot of places. So it's a surcharged place. And what is surcharged about it? You know, when you walk through the streets of Mathura, or you drive in a taxi or a car through Mathura, it looks like any other place. However, the transcendental place is covered by veneer, and beneath the veneer is the transcendental place. So visiting such a place, or making such a place, Vrindavan, Mathura, etc., places where the Lord performed his pastimes, it's ideal. It's ideal. Now, according to Rupa Goswami, aside from residing with his verses, same looking on the screen, residence in a place where I reside is transcendental. So where I reside, of course, there's different places where Krishna had his pastimes, and therefore one can say those are his residences. But the place, the verses and verses and verses of the merit of the dust of Vraja, and the merit of the dust of Vraja, of course, is because it's Krishna's place, but Krishna walked there, and the cows of Krishna walked there, and the associates of Krishna walked there. And therefore, in addition to the transcendental nature of the descent of the Holy Dham within the material world, there's the dust of the lotus feet of Krishna and the associates of Krishna within Vrindavan, and thus Braj Raj is very transcendentally special. It has invested in it transcendental potency, although by external appearances it's like any other particle of dust. Now, there are some who say, "Oh, phooey." This is hyperbole, it's an over-exaggeration. Arthavad, it's called. It's an offense against that which is transcendental and considering it to be not transcendental. And there's different lists of things that one may see as being not transcendental when they're transcendental. And this is the category of offense. But if one doesn't have faith, then one may see like that. There's a tendency to see, wait a minute, there's a deity form of Krishna, and these people say the deity form of Krishna is non-different than Krishna. These people say. But here's what I see. Yesterday evening we discussed a little about, substantially about the Damodar pastime, and towards the end I showed some photographs of the Damodar deity that was personally carved by Rupa Goswami for his disciple and nephew, Jiva Goswami. The detail is from Vindhya Parvat, from a mountain range in South India. He received the marble and personally, with his own hand, carved the deity and gifted the deity to Jiva Goswami, who lovingly worshipped the deity. It's said about the worship, I didn't mention this, but it's said that he would sing and Krishna would dance. And Krishna would play his flute and they would have conversation. There was personal interaction with the deity. Now, perhaps there's devotees here, pujaris or others, who have had personal experiences with their deity, and without giving a list of examples, there's examples within our modern history and certainly within ancient history where the deity personally interacts with the worshipper. But it's natural. So some persons say, "Oh, that's silly." And those who are devotees, at least theoretically, may say, "Well, why not?" Because, then the philosophy, Krishna is absolute, and so the form of Krishna is the same as Krishna, the name of Krishna is the same as Krishna. So why not? That's the difference between the material and the spiritual realm. The absolute is absolute. And therefore the form and the person are non-different. Or the place and the person who resided in that place are non-different. Vrindavan Dham is non-different than Krishna. The places where Krishna resides is non-different than Krishna. It's the same as our temples are in Vaikuntha, or your home becomes spiritualized. Shri Shri Radha Neela Madhava Ki Jai. Is that a sign we're supposed to end the class? No? 10 after 8. Huh? But discussion. Prabhupada was very, when in Vrindavan, there's the bell ringing at, 8 o'clock. You know the story? The devotees, the Surabhi Palayantam, he wanted to have a bell that on the hour it would ring, because people in Vrindavan at the time didn't have watches. No, probably most people have watches. But by ringing the bell, the temple would inform everybody it's 1 o'clock, it's 2 o'clock. So it must, ring that many times on the hour. And Prabhupada was skeptical and not so encouraging, and he did it anyways. And Prabhupada was insisting that if you start it, then you have to maintain it, because he said there were some sputters, but finally it became, and now it's just standard. So in Vrindavan, when Prabhupada would give the morning class, when the 8 a.m. bell rang, that was a sign that class is over. And not like he just interrupted a sentence, but you hear the recordings of Prabhupada's lectures in Vrindavan, and around that time when the large bell rang 8 times, that's when class was over. Is this audience an audience that likes to ask questions? Because I can...
Usually they go till 8:30.
Usually what?
Till 8:30, then ask the question.
Really? Okay. It's a marathon group. Okay. Kind of went off track with thought process. There's more in this chapter, obviously, because it's about transcendence in comparison to the modes of nature. The modes of nature is a big topic. Do a count sometime, or devotees have done a count. There's 5 main topics in the Bhagavad Gita, and material nature is one of those. And there's more topics about material nature and the modes of nature than any other topic in the Bhagavad Gita. It's a big topic, and here's a whole chapter dedicated to so it is an important topic. It's the compare, contrast, understand transcendence in comparison to the material modes of nature. And the presence of Krishna can make a mundane place, an ordinary place, transcendental. Just a sharing again, because Radha Krishna, I heard that lecture twice. Just sound, the device I have, it repeats it. So I heard the Prabhupada's interview or discussion with Yogi Bhajan. And Yogi Bhajan was, he's an interesting person, but he was appreciating how Prabhupada has managed to take people who were very not so qualified, fallen, and transform them into qualified people, Brahmanas. That was his intention, and he was able to accomplish it. So certainly a major way that he was able to accomplish it was through his books, and presenting them again and again, and exemplifying them again and again, and helping to bring followers to that same position so they can similarly help people become elevated from worldly condition to a transcendental position by association, by sound vibration. And a big part of that process was the attachment that Srila Prabhupada's disciples had to him. Of course, there were persons who deviated, and then there was signs that they had deviated and that the transcendentalness faded. The radiance and effulgence and qualities and behaviors, etc., faded. But in contact, back to the message of the verse, this Srimad Bhagavatam is giving the teaching of the place where Krishna resides, and one can invite Krishna into one's home and make one's home Vaikuntha, or the place where Krishna resides, although previously it wasn't, whether it's regardless of the address. So inviting regular worship in one's home, the Srimad Bhagavatam in one's home, the chanting of the holy name in one's home. There's this nice verse that says specifically, Krishna says, some people say I reside here, reside there, reside this place, that place. Where I reside is where there's the congregational chanting of the holy name. That's where I reside. So invite Krishna to your place by having kirtan. Have kirtan connected with the Srimad Bhagavatam, have kirtan connected with deity worship. One of the essential features of deity worship is having kirtan before the deity, in addition to offerings and ringing a bell and mantras and tantras and mudras and all the procedures for deity worship. Kirtan is essential because it's pleasing to the deity, and that's how the transformation takes place. Having the spirit of doing that which is pleasing to the personality of God. It's not just inviting a deity or inviting the Bhagavatam, but read it or worship and make offerings and have kirtan before the deity. That makes it complete. Exactly as we do in the temple. Same one should do in one's home. So let's see, I'm going to stop here and see if there's some discussion. Our garland maker's looking like you're having a good time. You have all these nice big flowers. There must be a robust flower budget here. Yes? It's not sufficient? Donated? Really? And you get to string the garlands of the donated flowers offered to the deity. You ladies are blessed with good fortune. Yes?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, you mentioned that wherever congregational chanting takes place, Krishna resides there. And so just wanted to ask, like, where deity worship or is taking place, or like, is there a difference between proper official installation of the deities and then worship and kirtan taking place, versus there is altar where there are just pictures kept of the Lord and the spiritual masters and their kirtan taking place?
Well, your question is there a difference between this and that?
Yeah, where Krishna is residing and the place becoming transcendental.
Yeah, it's non-different. The procedures and the requirements for the worshipper become elevated a bit when there's deity as opposed to picture, but the principle is fully transcendental. How's that? I mean, in the very beginning, just as an example, in the very beginning, Prabhupada didn't introduce deity worship because, his own reasons, but my understanding is the devotees didn't have the adhikar, the quality for engaging in deity worship. So the standard was, in temples, it was called Guru Garanga altar. And there was one of the things that Prabhupada did, as soon as there were artists, in addition to photographs or prints, he had artists in training simply making Panchatattva paintings, original paintings, oil paintings. And there was a whole team of devotees that made it. That's the Gauranga part. And then there's the Guru part. So a smaller photo of Prabhupada, and that was it. Guru Gauranga altar. And we worshipped. We didn't do all the dresses and garlands and everything, but non-different. And then, as the devotees became more qualified, he introduced deity worship, etc. Does that answer your question?
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you.
So my question is, can the process be reversed?
What's that?
The process of making a place transcendental through chanting and through worship, can that process be reversed?
Yeah. I mentioned it. Supposing there's a connection by that process, the connecting process, then there's a disconnect. Is it possible? Definitely possible. I mentioned it happened during Prabhupada's time. Persons made a disconnect in different ways. And then their bright-facedness and their demeanor and everything, became, again, influenced by the same tendencies. This was a sign. The same tendencies that they previously had would appear again. Behaviors, speech, dress, style, habits, association, types of association at least. The process can reverse. That connect, disconnect. Okay, we'll end there. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki.